Here's something the retirement industry doesn't want to say out loud. The fastest growing group of Americans moving abroad to retire isn't couples. It isn't men. It's single women. Women who raised families, built careers, outlived partners, or simply decided they were done waiting for someone else to make the first move. Women who looked at their Social Security check, looked at their rent, and did math that just didn't add up. And then they left. Not in desperation, in clarity. Right now, tens of thousands of American women over 55 are living fuller, safer, richer lives abroad on incomes that would barely cover a studio apartment in Phoenix. They have friends, they have community. They have healthcare they can afford and neighborhoods where they walk alone at night without thinking twice. They have lives, actual, vibrant, interesting lives, on $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Here's what makes the math especially brutal for women. Women live longer than men, nearly 6 years longer on average, which means your retirement savings have to stretch further. Women also earn less over a lifetime, which means smaller Social Security checks. The average benefit for a woman collecting Social Security in 2026 is around $1,650 a month. The average cost of living for a single person in the US, over $3,800. That's a $2,150 shortfall every single month for potentially 25 or 30 years. And the retirement industry solution is what exactly? Work longer, save more, hope the market cooperates. The women who've actually solved this problem chose a different answer. We found 10 of them, 10 countries where a single woman can live safely, comfortably, and with real community on $1,400 a month or less. We're going to talk about safety specifically, because that's not optional, it's the whole ballgame. We're counting down from 10 to 1. Stay until number 1. That's the destination where expat women consistently say they feel safer than they did in their own American cities. And that one surprises almost everyone. Before we get into the list, here's how we built it. This isn't a top 10 list assembled from tourism boards and wishful thinking. For every destination, we specifically looked for women's reporting on safety, solo walkability, local community integration, and healthcare access. If the numbers looked great but the women's forums said otherwise, it didn't make the list. That filter matters. Let's go. Not the state, the country, the ancient, astonishing, almost entirely overlooked country wedged between the Caucasus Mountains and the Black Sea, bordered by Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia to the north. Most Americans couldn't point to it on a map. That is, once again, exactly why it's on this list. Tbilisi, the capital, is one of those cities that makes you feel like you stumbled into a secret. Ornate wrought iron balconies draped in flowering vines, cobblestone streets winding past medieval churches and sulfurous bathhouses. A wine culture that predates ancient Rome, Georgia is widely considered the birthplace of wine, with 8,000 years of winemaking tradition. A food scene that is genuinely, shockingly good. And a cost of living so low that most first-timers spend their first week convinced they're doing the math wrong. English is increasingly spoken among younger Georgians, particularly in Tbilisi, and the expat community is large enough and growing fast enough that navigating daily life in English is genuinely manageable. You'll pick up a few Georgian phrases and locals will love you for it, but you won't be lost. The cost breakdown. A furnished one-bedroom apartment in a safe, central Tbilisi neighborhood runs $350 to $550 a month. Weekly groceries cost $30 to $45. A sit-down meal at a Georgian restaurant and Georgian food, kinkali dumplings, hachapuri bread boats loaded with egg and butter and cheese, rich walnut sauces over roasted vegetables, runs $5 to $10. A single woman living comfortably in Tbilisi spends $900 to $1,200 a month. That's it. Georgia's remotely from Georgia visa and its straightforward residency options make it easy to stay legally. There are no income thresholds for short to medium-term stays, and longer-term residency is accessible for retirees. Now, the safety picture, because that's what you actually need to know. Georgia ranks relatively well on the Global Peace Index for the region. Tbilisi is routinely described by women expats as walkable and safe at night in the central neighborhoods. Violent crime against foreigners is rare. That said, and this is important, Georgia shares a border with Russia, and the conflict in the occupied territories of South Ossetia and Abkhazia is a geographic reality. Those regions are far from Tbilisi, but the geopolitical situation warrants monitoring. The U.S. State Department currently advises normal precautions for most of Georgia. Stay aware, stay informed. The catch on top of that, Georgia is not the most progressive country culturally, and solo female travelers do occasionally report street harassment. Not dangerous, but present. The older the neighborhood, the more conservative the norms. Choosing the right part of the city matters. Tbilisi's Vake and Vera districts are the sweet spots for expat women. Modern, walkable, safe, and full of cafes where you'll meet other foreigners within the first week. The verdict. For adventurous women who want extraordinary history, food, wine, affordability, and a city that still feels like a discovery, Georgia delivers in ways that almost nowhere else at this price point does. I can hear the hesitation. Nicaragua, and I'm going to earn your trust here by being completely honest about both the opportunity and the risk. Nicaragua is the most affordable country in Central America, full stop. And in specific towns, it has cultivated a genuine expat community with deep roots, including a significant number of single women who have been living there happily for 10+ years. Granada, the oldest colonial city in the Americas, sits on the shores of Lake Nicaragua, beneath a row of painted cathedral spires. San Juan del Sur is a Pacific beach town that draws surfers, retirees, and expat entrepreneurs in roughly equal measure. English in tourist and expat areas is functional. You'll want some Spanish, but basic conversation gets you far. Spanish classes are cheap, and often how expat women first build real local friendships. The numbers. A furnished one-bedroom in Granada, $250 to $400 a month. Groceries, $30 to $40 a week. A full meal with fresh juice at a local comedor, $3 to $5. A comfortable single woman's monthly budget in Nicaragua, $800 to $1,100. The retirement visa, the pensionado program, requires just $600 in monthly pension income, the lowest income threshold of any retirement visa on this list. Retirees get duty-free import allowances and discounts on a range of services. Here's the honest risk. Nicaragua's political situation since 2018 has been volatile. The Ortega government has cracked down on civil liberties, jailed political opponents, and created an environment of significant instability. That is serious. Expats living there long-term report that daily life in Granada and beach towns feels calm and removed from political tensions, but that reassurance has limits. This is not a destination for someone who wants zero geopolitical stress. It is a destination for someone who has researched the situation thoroughly, monitors it continuously, and has a clear exit plan. If that describes you, the lifestyle reward is real, but eyes open, always eyes open. The transformation of Colombia's reputation over the last 20 years is one of the most dramatic turnarounds in modern travel history. The city that was once called the most dangerous in the world has become one of Latin America's most visited, most livable, and most celebrated destinations, particularly among expat retirees. Medellín sits in a valley at 5,000 feet above sea level, which gives it what locals call the eternal spring climate. Daytime temperatures hover between 70 and 78 degrees virtually every day of the year. No air conditioning needed. No heavy coats, just that perfect, gentle warmth that makes you want to sit on a terrace with a coffee and stay forever, which increasingly people are. English is spoken in expat-heavy neighborhoods like El Poblado and Laureles, particularly in cafes, restaurants, and co-working spaces. You'll need basic Spanish for daily errands, and it will make your life dramatically richer here. But the expat community in Medellín, one of the largest in Latin America, has abundant resources for newcomers. The cost breakdown. A furnished one-bedroom in El Poblado, $500 to $750 a month. In Laureles, the neighborhood more popular with long-term expats who've outgrown the tourist bubble of El Poblado, $350 to $550. Groceries, $50 to $70 a week at local markets. A meal at a good Colombian restaurant, $5 to $9. Monthly budget for a single woman living comfortably, $1,000 to $1,300. Colombia's pensionado visa requires $750 in monthly pension income and grants permanent residency. No annual renewal. Real, documented, legal status. Healthcare in Medellín is legitimately excellent by global standards. The city has internationally accredited hospitals, English-speaking specialists, and costs that are 60 to 70% lower than the US equivalent. Medical tourism to Medellín is a whole industry. People fly in from the US specifically for procedures. That tells you something. The safety picture. Medellín still has crime, let's be specific. Reduce risk significantly. Violent crime against expats is rare but not non-existent. El Poblado and Laureles are considered the safest neighborhoods. Women's expat forums for Medellín are active and detailed. Read them before you decide anything. The consensus from long-term female expats is largely positive, with the consistent caveat that smart urban habits are non-negotiable here. The verdict. Medellín is for women who want a real, vibrant city, culture, restaurants, day trips to the coffee region, a huge expat community, at a price that should not be legally possible. It is not for someone who wants to feel effortlessly safe the way you might in a small European town. It's urban, it rewards awareness, and for the right woman, it is genuinely spectacular. We covered Gozo in the islands video, so here we're broadening to all of Malta, because for single women specifically, the full island gives you something Gozo's quiet charm slightly lacks: a real, walkable, cosmopolitan city in Valletta, and a social scene dense enough to build genuine friendships quickly. Malta is an EU country. Former British colony. English is an official language. On every sign, in every government office, at your doctor, at your bank, you will never struggle to communicate. That matters more than people realize when you're new somewhere and need help navigating a system you don't fully understand yet. The safety picture for women in Malta is excellent. The Women, Peace and Security Index rates Malta well above the regional average for personal security. Valletta and the three cities are walkable at night. Sexual harassment exists. It exists everywhere, but at rates that women expats consistently describe as lower than their experience in major American cities. The expat women's community in Malta is active, organized, and welcoming to newcomers. Cost of living. A furnished one-bedroom in Valletta or Sliema, $600 to $850 a month. The island's rising popularity is pushing rents up. We said this in the islands video, and it's worth repeating. Groceries, $45 to $60 a week. A restaurant meal with wine, $12 to $18. Monthly budget for a single woman, $1,200 to $1,500, with careful spending achievable toward the lower end. Malta's Global Residence Program requires a minimum annual tax of €15,000 and a rental or purchase commitment, which puts it at the higher end of bureaucratic and financial entry. But for women who want EU stability, English ease, Mediterranean beauty, and a healthcare system ranked in the top 10 in Europe by the World Health Organization, Malta is a near-perfect package. The catch: it is expensive relative to others on this list. It is small, and it is getting more popular, which means the affordability window is not unlimited. Thailand has been on every retirement list for 20 years. The reason it's still there is because it keeps being right. But for single women specifically, the conventional advice, Phuket, Pattaya, can feel like it was written for someone else entirely. Those beach resort towns have specific scenes that skew heavily male and can feel isolating or uncomfortable for women traveling or living solo. Chiang Mai is different. It is genuinely, measurably different. Chiang Mai sits in northern Thailand, ringed by mountains, filled with over 300 Buddhist temples, and home to one of the most diverse, established, and specifically female-friendly expat communities in all of Southeast Asia. Women-only expat groups in Chiang Mai have thousands of members. Coffee shops become offices. Yoga studios become social hubs. The old city becomes your neighborhood. It is a place where a woman arriving alone becomes not alone extremely quickly. English is spoken widely in expat areas, tourist districts, cafes, and hospitals. Basic Thai, which is genuinely difficult, helps, but you can live a full life without it. The cost breakdown. A furnished one-bedroom in a good Chiang Mai neighborhood, $300 to $500 a month. Groceries at local markets, $35 to $50 a week. A meal at a Thai restaurant and Thai food in Chiang Mai is some of the best food you will ever eat in your life, $2 to $5. Monthly budget for a single woman, $900 to $1,200. Healthcare at private hospitals like Chiang Mai Ram or Bangkok Hospital, Chiang Mai, is world-class, English-staffed, and costs roughly 70 to 80% less than US equivalent care. Thailand's retirement visa, the non-immigrant OA, requires proof of $25,000 in a Thai bank account or $2,000 monthly income. It requires annual renewal, which expats describe as a manageable, if slightly tedious process. The catches. The annual visa renewal is the biggest frustration women report. It's not difficult, but it is bureaucratic. Thai immigration rules have changed several times and can change again with little notice. The heat in Chiang Mai from March through May is intense. Cultural dress norms near temples require awareness. And while Chiang Mai is markedly safer and more comfortable for solo women than Thailand's beach resort towns, street harassment is not zero. But for the combination of community, affordability, food, beauty, and the ease of building a social life from scratch, Chiang Mai belongs on this list without question. Everyone has heard about Lisbon. Lisbon is genuinely wonderful and genuinely getting expensive. We're talking about where single women are finding Portugal's real magic in 2026, and it's not in the capital. It is in the golden interior plains of the Alentejo and along the windswept Atlantic beaches of the Silver Coast. Portugal has been ranked the #1 retirement destination in the world by International Living for multiple consecutive years. The reasons are real. Former British ally. English is the third most spoken foreign language in the country, and in expat towns, it is everywhere. The country is consistently rated one of the safest in Europe for women travelers. The Global Peace Index ranks Portugal in the top 10 globally, year after year. Évora, the Alentejo's UNESCO World Heritage City, offers Roman ruins, whitewashed streets, a local food scene built around cork oak honey, black pork, and regional wines, and a pace of life that resets something in your nervous system. Furnished one-bedroom apartments, $550 to $800 a month. Groceries, $50 to $65 a week. A meal at a local restaurant with a glass of Alentejo wine, $12 to $16. Monthly budget, $1,100 to $1,400. The Silver Coast, towns like Caldas da Rainha, Óbidos, Peniche, offers a wilder, more dramatic Atlantic landscape. Cheaper than the Algarve, less discovered. Women's expat communities here are tight, warm, and very specifically organized around the needs of single women who came alone and built a life. Portugal's NHR tax regime has changed for new arrivals, replaced by the IFICI program targeting specific income categories, so tax planning now requires a good local accountant. The D8 Digital Nomad Visa and the D7 Passive Income Visa remain the two clearest paths to legal residency for American retirees. The D7 requires demonstrating roughly $1,200 in monthly income, which is achievable for anyone receiving even a modest Social Security check. Healthcare in Portugal is ranked 12th in the world by the WHO. Public healthcare is available to legal residents. Private care is excellent and affordable. A GP consultation at a private clinic, $30 to $50. The catch that matters most in 2026. Portugal is being discovered at a rate that is genuinely alarming if affordability is your priority. Rental prices in Lisbon and Porto are up 30+% over 3 years. Évora and the Silver Coast have not yet seen the same surge. but they will. The window for getting in at the prices on this list is real, and it is not infinite. Mexico is complicated, and we're going to be precise, because there is a version of Mexico that is exactly right for a safety-conscious single woman, and a version of Mexico that isn't, and conflating them is how people make bad decisions. Oaxaca City and the Lake Chapala region in Jalisco are two of the most established, most loved, and most specifically female expat-populated destinations in the entire country. Lake Chapala, a 50-mile-long lake at 5,100 feet altitude in the Mexican highlands, an hour south of Guadalajara, has been home to one of North America's largest expat communities for decades. Ajijic, the main expat village on the lake's north shore, is warm, walkable, English functional, and has the kind of established women's groups, book clubs, art classes, and social infrastructure that takes years to build and immediately makes you feel at home. English is widely spoken in these specific communities. You'll want Spanish for daily life and it will reward you richly, but you will not be stranded without it. The cost breakdown. A furnished one-bedroom in Ajijic, $500 to $750 a month. Groceries, $45 to $60 a week. A meal at a good local restaurant, $6 to $10. Monthly budget, $1,000 to $1,300. Healthcare is one of Mexico's strongest arguments. Private clinics in Guadalajara, just an hour away, offer world-class care at prices that seem impossible. A specialist consultation, $30 to $50. Many expats specifically choose this location for the proximity to Guadalajara's top-tier private hospitals. Mexico's retirement visa, the Residente Temporal, is straightforward. You need to demonstrate roughly $1,400 in monthly income to qualify. After 4 years, you can apply for permanent residency. Safety, specifically. The U.S. State Department's travel advisories for Mexico operate state by state. Jalisco, where Lake Chapala sits, carries a reconsider travel advisory due to cartel activity in parts of the state. However, Ajijic and the Lake Chapala corridor have a long track record of safety for foreign retirees, and the expat community there is large enough to have genuine institutional knowledge about which precautions matter. The consensus from women living there is, use common sense, don't drive at night on rural roads, stay in the established expat areas, and you will be fine. That's not a guarantee. Nothing is. But it is a realistic, informed assessment from women on the ground. Oaxaca City is different again. A cultural capital with extraordinary indigenous food, art, and craft traditions, a slower and more artistic scene, and an expat community that skews younger and more creatively inclined. Both are real options depending on who you are. Costa Rica has held its reputation as the gold standard for Central American retirement so consistently, for so long, that it's worth asking whether that reputation is still deserved. In 2026, the answer is yes, with important nuance. The country is politically stable, genuinely democratic, and abolished its military in 1948. That fact alone, no army, redirected budget to education and healthcare, tells you something about the national priorities. The Global Peace Index ranks Costa Rica consistently as one of the safest countries in the Americas. The Women, Peace, and Security Index shows some of the region's better scores for women's physical security. The expat community of women living solo there, and there are thousands, consistently reports a baseline sense of safety that goes beyond the statistics. The Central Valley, where the capital San Jose and surrounding towns like Escazú, Santa Ana, Heredia, and Atenas sit, offers something rare: year-round temperatures between 65 and 78 degrees at altitude, world-class private healthcare within 30 minutes, a sophisticated food and restaurant scene, and English widely spoken in expat and service areas. Atenas specifically has been called the best climate in the world by National Geographic, a claim the local expat community quotes with cheerful regularity. Small, walkable, friendly, surrounded by coffee farms. A furnished one-bedroom in Atenas, $500 to $700 a month. In Escazú, slightly more urban and upscale, $700 to $1,000. Groceries, $55 to $70 a week. A restaurant meal, $8 to $14. Monthly budget for a single woman living well, $1,100 to $1,400. Costa Rica's pensionado visa requires just $1,000 in monthly pension income and grants legal residency indefinitely with annual renewal. Pensionado residents receive discounts on public entertainment, transportation, and some healthcare services. It is one of the cleanest, most straightforward retirement visa processes in the world. Healthcare. The CAJA, Costa Rica's public healthcare system, is available to legal residents and is genuinely functional, though wait times for specialists can be long. Private healthcare in the Central Valley is excellent, affordable, a specialist visit, $50 to $80, and English-speaking in the major private hospitals. Sliema and Clínica Bíblica in San Jose are internationally accredited. Medical tourism to Costa Rica is well established, which tells you everything you need to know about quality. The catches. Driving is stressful, roads are poorly marked, potholes are real, and the car-dependent nature of much of the country frustrates people accustomed to walkable urban living. Crime in San Jose proper is a consideration. Purse snatching and phone theft in crowded areas are real. The established expat neighborhoods largely mitigate this, but smart habits matter. And Costa Rica is not cheap by Latin American standards. It is the most expensive country in Central America. $1,400 a month gives you a comfortable life, not a lavish one. But for safety, stability, English accessibility, and healthcare, it is and has been the benchmark for good reason. Spain, an EU country. Country where women's rights are protected by law, the healthcare system is ranked 7th in the world by the WHO, the food is extraordinary, the culture is extraordinary, the weather is extraordinary, and where, if you know where to look, you can still live on $1,400 a month. The keyword is where you look. Barcelona and Madrid are not on this list. They are wonderful cities where $1,400 covers a room in a shared apartment, if you're lucky. But the Canary Islands, Tenerife, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, and Valencia on the mainland are a genuinely different story. The Canary Islands sit off the Atlantic coast of Africa, closer to Morocco than to mainland Spain. The climate is the finest in Europe. The islands average 300+ days of sunshine a year, with temperatures that rarely drop below 65 or rise above 85. It is perpetual spring. Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, the main city on Gran Canaria, is a proper European city. UNESCO-listed historic center. Beaches right in the city, a cosmopolitan food scene, direct flights to major European hubs at prices well below the Spanish mainland. A furnished one-bedroom in Las Palmas, $650 to $900 a month. Groceries at local mercados, $55 to $70 a week. A meal at a Canarian restaurant with local wine, $12 to $18. Monthly budget, $1,200 to $1,500, manageable with intentional spending. Valencia, on the mainland, home of the original paella, a city of 800,000 with world-class museums, a beach within the city, one of Europe's finest markets, runs slightly more, but furnished one-bedrooms in non-tourist neighborhoods can still be found at $700 to $950. Spain's non-lucrative visa, the pathway most retirees use, requires demonstrating approximately $2,700 in monthly income. That is higher than most destinations on this list, and above the $1,400 threshold in the video title. It is worth flagging clearly. You can live on $1,400, but qualifying for the visa requires demonstrating more. This is a distinction that matters, and one you need to discuss with a Spanish immigration lawyer. The Golden Visa program is a separate, investment-based route. The Digital Nomad Visa has other requirements. Visa planning for Spain requires real professional guidance. Safety for women in Spain is excellent by global standards. Spanish culture has its machismo, catcalling exists, but violent crime against women is legally treated as gender-based violence with specific prosecutorial frameworks. The country has significantly invested in women's safety infrastructure. Women expats in both the Canaries and Valencia consistently report feeling safe walking alone at night in a way that genuinely surprises them compared to their American experience. The catch: the bureaucracy for Spanish residency is famously frustrating. Consulate backlogs, appointment scarcity, document requirements that shift, budget-significant time, patience, and a good local lawyer. This is non-negotiable. The visa process is where Spain loses people who were otherwise perfect for it. But once you're in, and thousands of American women are in, the quality of life reward is almost unfair. We said Portugal at number 5, and here we are again, because what the data shows when you specifically filter by women's safety, women's community, women's healthcare outcomes, and women's reported quality of life, Portugal doesn't just make the list, it tops it by a significant margin. Let me be specific about what women are actually reporting, because the details matter more than the rankings. Women living solo in Portugal's smaller cities and coastal towns report something that is surprisingly hard to find in this world: the feeling of being unremarkable, of walking to the market alone, having coffee alone, sitting in a square reading alone, and having none of it feel unusual, unsafe, or commented upon. That is a specific thing. That is not everywhere. Portugal ranks 4th globally on the Global Peace Index. The Women, Peace and Security Index gives it some of the highest scores in Southern Europe. The D7 passive income visa, requiring roughly $1,200 in monthly income, is one of the most straightforward legal residency paths in Europe. Healthcare ranked 12th in the world by the WHO, available to residents. A private GP consultation, $30 to $50. An MRI, $200 to $300. The Silver Coast towns we mentioned at number 5, Caldas da Rainha, Peniche, Óbidos, Alcobaça, are where the more affordable version of this life actually lives. Furnished one-bedrooms, $550 to $800. Groceries, $50 to $65 a week. A meal with local wine, $10 to $15. Monthly budget, $1,100 to $1,400. The community factor is real. Portugal's expat population of single women is large, established, and organized in a way that matters practically. When you arrive, there are people to meet within the first week. Not because you're lucky, but because the infrastructure for it exists. Language exchange groups, hiking clubs, art workshops, book groups, women-only walking tours of historic towns. The social scaffolding has been built, you just have to show up. Portuguese is a genuine challenge. It is harder than Spanish for English speakers and less widely spoken by locals in English than, say, the Netherlands or Scandinavia. That is the honest caveat. But in the expat-dense Silver Coast towns, English is functional, and the language barrier, while real, has not stopped thousands of American women from building full, rich lives there. The cost warning we've already given, but it bears repeating. Prices are rising. The affordability of Portugal that has defined the last decade of expat coverage is real, but its future is not guaranteed. The time to go is now, not in 3 years. The verdict? For a single woman who wants safety that she can feel, not just read about in an index, community that already exists and is waiting for her, a European country with full legal and healthcare infrastructure, and a cost of living that makes $1,400 a month feel genuinely abundant, Portugal, specifically the Silver Coast, is the answer. It is not the flashiest on this list. It is not the cheapest. It is the one where woman after woman, year after year, reports having found exactly what she was looking for. That's not marketing. That's pattern recognition. 10 countries. 10 different versions of a life that the retirement system told you wasn't possible on what you have. Georgia, ancient, astonishing, absurdly affordable, with eternal walled city wandering built into the price. Nicaragua, the lowest cost of living on this list, raw Caribbean magic, with political risk that must be taken seriously and personally assessed. Colombia, Medellín, the great urban comeback story, eternal spring climate, a real city for women who want culture and energy and can bring smart urban habits. Malta, EU stability, English everywhere, Mediterranean beauty, and healthcare that would make your current doctor jealous. Thailand, Chiang Mai, the women's expat community that built itself, with $1,200 a month buying a life most Americans can't buy on $4,000. Portugal's Alentejo and Silver Coast, where you go when you want Europe without fighting the Lisbon prices. Mexico, Lake Chapala, decades of expat infrastructure, highlands climate, healthcare an hour away in Guadalajara. Costa Rica, the hemisphere's benchmark for political stability, the Central Valley climate that National Geographic actually called the best in the world. Spain, the Canaries, and Valencia, because an EU country with 300 days of sunshine and world-ranked healthcare is still possible if you know where to look. And Portugal, again, the Silver Coast, #1, because the data on women's safety, women's community, and women's quality of life points there, clearly and consistently, year after year. Not every destination on this list is right for you. Some require urban street smarts you may or may not want to develop. Some have visa processes that will test your patience. Some have geopolitical situations that require continuous monitoring. Visiting before committing for a month, if you can, is not optional advice. It is essential. But here's what all 10 countries share. They are full of women who left, arrived, were nervous, and then found something they hadn't expected to find. Not just affordability, not just warmth, but a life that felt like their own choosing, maybe for the first time. The world is wider than you think, and more of it is waiting for you than anyone told you. One more thing before you go. There is a flip side to every list like this. Countries where the expat welcome mat has quietly been pulled. Countries where rising nationalism, economic instability, or policy changes are making life measurably harder for American retirees in ways that aren't showing up yet in the listicles. We've done that research too. It's on your screen right now. Because finding the right destination matters, but avoiding the wrong ones matters just as much.